Hello, this video is about the astrological transits from May 1st, 2023 to May 7th, 2023. I'll talk about each day real quick, but it's all about two big days this week. It's going to be Monday and Friday, and I'm going to get right to that. If you are a fixed sign, as in Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius, this is a huge week for you. Any planets in those places, your rising sign, sun or moon, so on and so forth, big week for you all. And I'll talk about the certain degrees and to narrow down who can it affect. Okay, so let's get to the first day. I'm going to put up, doing this a little differently here so you can see the screen. Right here is a chart of May 1st. And the chart's going to say Sun conjunct Mercury there, but I first want to start off by saying that the first thing that happens on May 1st, and that's pretty much happening when I'm making this video on the last weekend of April, is Pluto in the sign of Aquarius is stationing retrograde here, 10:08 a.m. Pacific time where I am at, and this is a second chapter in the Pluto and Aquarius story, and a big one. We just had Pluto enter into the sign of Aquarius in March. It gave us a glimpse, a uncovering, a little bit of a detection of what was going on. And I'll point to Pluto here so you could just see where it's at right here in the chart. 0 degrees stationing. That means it stops. And it basically, we had from March until now an insight to what the 20-year Pluto and Aquarius transit is going to be. A little hint, a little private view, a little mysterious awakening in Pluto. Now, if you have planets in fixed signs, like I mentioned, especially at 0 and 1 degree, this is affecting you. You've been affected here since March. You're going to be affected by this station this week. A lot of other people might not see how Pluto's going to function here, might not have it be obvious in their life, but those specific fixed sign degrees, or if you have any of that in your chart, you're really affected by this. If you have degrees at late degree Capricorn, from 27, 28, 29, you're affected by this too. The reason is Pluto stationing retrograde here and at 0, and it's going to go back all the way to 27 degrees Capricorn and review that space again. So that when it stops doing that, it's in October of this year, and then it starts to move forward, and it's going to move over the degrees of 27, 28, 29, and eventually back to 0 degrees early next year, and we do this dance all over again. This is a big deal. I just want you to remember the key words here. I'll do it this way for you. The key words and are to think about something that was uncovered that you didn't see before in the Pluto and Aquarius, in the Aquarius part of your chart, and if you're affected specifically by these degrees. I want you to think about, in a sense, things that are like forbidden and that cannot be had, and the power play games that happen there, and the power struggle games that have happened there in the beginning part of Aquarius. Think about it as a revealing of sorts, a small reveal, a hint for the next year and a half, and really for the next 20 years on a deeper level. I don't think that story fills out until we go farther into the transit for the next year and a half, where you can get a really solid basis of what is being revealed. It's just being slowly given to you, stopping, having to go backwards, and then slowly giving another piece again. Pluto's being such a tease in this one. But I also want you to remember the type of words that Aquarius deals with. I'll give you quick ones. Experimental. It likes to change things, reform things. And it also brings ingenious stuff, innovative stuff, progressive things. So there was a hint, an unveiling of possible these things, whether it was hard in your life or not. Pluto stations retrograde on May 1st, Monday at 10:08 a.m., and it's going to go back here to the past a little bit in the Capricorn part of your chart, and eventually come back to the revealing place. So that happens early on Monday. On later in Monday, 4:27 p.m., Mercury, which is in the sign of Taurus, which has been retrograde here now, is going to do its big part of every single Mercury retrograde story that happens, so 3 times a year at least. Mercury is conjunct and together with the Sun I'll show you right here in a sense, so I can annotate this for you, and I'll make it like a circle or a arrow there. You see Mercury and the sun right there at 11 degrees. They're together. Mercury's going into the sun to be reborn, to be melted down to its purity. In the Mercury retrograde cycle, this is a very important day and situation, because this is a place actually where you can get clarity with Mercury, considering typically in Mercury retrogrades, there isn't clarity, or there's mishaps happening with communication, or how things get from one place to another. If you got Mercury in Taurus, a fixed sign, you're going through a recalibration process with how you process your thoughts and how you construct them, and what's happening in your life with communication and words. I could tell you in the last week, I don't have Mercury in Taurus, but I've had very interesting Mercury challenges that have forced me to look at things and in a good way be like, oh, I didn't know I needed to learn that, or I needed to look things at a different angle, and I needed to do it slowly, because Mercury in Taurus wants to go slow. It wants to communicate constructively with well thought out words and paragraphs. Now, while Mercury is entering here into the sun, this is where Mercury gets to go through a rebirth process. And this rebirth process, when Mercury comes into the sun in a process, they call this Cazimi, and it's moving through, but it's purified. And in this place, it's actually a time to be clear, or maybe send that email, or to do the things supposedly you're not supposed to do during a Mercury retrograde, which I don't subscribe to those types of things. You just have to do stuff. It's life. But you have to be aware of mishaps, or redoing, or reviewing, right? These are the things. At this moment here, you can ritualize this and clear your mind, or clear the mercurial part of your chart, clear the Taurus part of your chart. And this is so fundamental, because this retrograde itself isn't just by itself Mercury doing its deal with the sun. It's connected to the last several weeks with lunations, with the ongoing story and eclipse story that's happening with Taurus Scorpio, with Uranus and Taurus, so on and so forth. And I will back what I'm saying up here quickly in this video when we get to Friday. So great Mercury moment here on a day when Pluto stations retrograde. A lot of energy shifting, a lot of realizations that are there, a lot of unveiling. And I want you to either take notes or metaphorically take notes in your world. But I also suggest that your clarity of intention, especially if you're effective, you're a fixed sign, if you're Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius, your clarity of intention in your world, what that means to you, you want to implement that, and you want to sit in this space. You want to sit in this space where, I'll go green here. You want to go here to this Taurus place and go straight into the sun with your intentions and clarity. And here something is seeded and reborn. Eventually Mercury moves through the sun, eventually continues its retrograde cycle, and then it's going to stop being retrograde here. It's the midpoint. So there you go. That's a big thing. That happens at 4:27. These are the key words for you: clear, insightfulness, and clarity. Okay. I also mentioned Pluto, about things being revealed. So you have this multiplied by two major planetary transits on Monday. So that's what's going on there. When we get to Tuesday, moon goes into Libra. I'm going to get nothing. Actually, there's not really any crazy aspects that happen on Tuesday. When we get to Wednesday, that moon in Libra actually is going to be opposing Chiron and Aries. Okay, part of the Chiron and Aries story, if you've been watching my videos, later in the day at 2:10, that's 8:19 a.m., Chiron opposing Moon opposing Chiron. Then we got Moon square Mars in Cancer, another cardinal sign at 2:10 p.m. The sensitivity that deals with Chiron is getting another hit by the Libra moon, and there's just more processing that has to do with the Aries part of your chart. Also, Aries and Libra people, you had the last eclipse happen in your world, so you're affected by this transit that day. When we get to May 4th on the Thursday, moon goes into Scorpio, 7:32 a.m. Here we go. Moon's going into Scorpio. As always, pay attention to it every month. But at 10:40 a.m. that day, something interesting happens. And Venus, which has been in the sign of Gemini, is going to make a square to Neptune and Pisces, a mutable square. And, in situations like this, I in particular I like to use squares or just be aware of them so one isn't surprised about the caustic nature of a square, which is to be challenged and something needs to be changed and shifted. And so Venus being in a sign of Gemini and the planet of relationships is dealing with Neptune, which throws this fog onto relationships and non-clarity on relationships, and how Gemini likes to have multiple types of relationships going on in all types of ways. The way Venus and Gemini likes to butterfly around, Neptune and Pisces throws a fog on that. It can get lost, actually. Venus and Gemini could get lost, discombobulated, spread out way too thin if it was being unbalanced in its Venus and Gemini nature of going from here to there and juggling multiple types of conversations in relations. This is where the fog gets thrown in and one gets lost. It can happen that way, and I just want you to be aware of that happens on Thursday at 10:40 a.m. Let me get this straight here. I just need to put something here. So that happens there. When we get to later that night, Venus then makes a sextile, a harmonious connection with Jupiter and Aries, which Jupiter and Aries is about to leave soon and go into Taurus. So Venus and Gemini has an interesting day that day. They get thrown for a loop a little bit, and then they connect with Jupiter and aspire and to show its fire and its will in relationships, and stating, in a sense, a way for Venus and Gemini to say what it actually needs and wants, which at times could be a multiplicity of things, but I think it can be very focused by the end of the day. Now, we get into, I'd say, just to be real, the full moon that happens at 10:34 a.m. in Scorpio. It's a lunar eclipse that happens. This, to me, is a culmination of the eclipse cycle that has started at the end of 2021, which I've talked about. You go back to my videos on Scorpio and Taurus eclipses the last year and a half. This is the one that culminates it all for me. There's one more eclipse that has to do with Taurus Scorpio in the fall, 5 degrees-ish. But this one at 14 degrees is the one that bears it all. To me, it's the one that finally reveals everything and exposes everything and gives you a sense, and can give you a sense of power if in the Taurus and in the Scorpio part of your chart. My Scorpios and Scorpio risings, everything I've talked to you about, whether privately in sessions or on this channel, I want you to bring all of the knowledge, all the somewhat pain and suffering that you've been secretly dealing with or have dealt with, all the insights that have come your way when you go deep, when the way you move. I want you to bring it to this week, and I want you to use everything that you've learned with this eclipse. And it's just so huge and so shifting that it's connected all the way to last year. May 4th, 2002, Uranus and the Sun in Taurus were conjunct at 14 degrees, where this eclipse is happening. We have January of earlier this year, January, we had Uranus stationed forward from being retrograde. It's stationed direct in Taurus at 14 degrees. We've had multiple things in the last month and a half that are touching the 14-degree mark, including the Mercury retrograde cycle, Mercury in Taurus. So the Mercury conjunct with the Sun that I talked about earlier in this video is connected to this eclipse too. If you have anything at 13 to 15, 16 degrees fixed, this is huge, especially if you're a Taurus, especially if you're a Scorpio. I don't mess around with this eclipse. I'm not going to tell you whether to do ritual or not, or to instigate something or not, or whatever. I just want you to be real about 14 degrees. I want you to be real, Taurus, about 14 degrees and what's been happening in your world. The Taurus and Scorpio parts of your chart. I want you to be clear and concise. How I first started off this video with Mercury going into the Sun. It will help you in the situations that transpire this week and on the full moon. Scorpio moon is probing, intense, and will find itself in a protective survival mode at times. It's compulsive at times. It's obsessive. And the other side is amazingly dialed in and pinpointed emotionally with where they're at. And a lot of times it's doing that privately, but there's power in that. So I want you to really think about what the word power is in the Scorpio and Taurus parts of your chart. And I want you to think about how this power and was exposed in the parts of Scorpio and Taurus where it has not worked for you in the last year and a half, and how finally this eclipse right here will, if you've been noticing and doing the work, will actually, I think, fall in your favor. And if you've been having challenges with this, it will just expose it all the way now, and there's no going back. So be real about your situations in Scorpio, Taurus parts of your chart. You got a Scorpio moon. Be real how you use your Scorpio moon or what happens sometimes. Don't get, revenge and deceit if it's off balance, that vengeful type of stuff. The other cool part of it is detecting the heart of things, the penetration emotionally. If you're in a good space with someone, with yourself and someone else emotionally, an eclipse like this can just change and open up a world like that and bring the regenerative, transformative process that Scorpio does so well in. But it only works when you're real, when you're brutally honest with yourself or brutally honest in situations, and you don't play games. No manipulations. No power struggle plays on the dark, uneven side. Power struggles, yes, but we want to be real in those situations, in those conversations. This particular Taurus-Scorpio axis, Uranus being in Taurus here since 2018, all of this, it's been some of my most insightful transits I've been dealing with from a client level and from my own personal world and from colleagues that I've talked to. I am loving this eclipse. I'm not saying that I'm loving it because it's like amazingly happy, feel good. It can be. I'm loving it because it's the realest deal, and it's actually brings so much things being cracked open again. And at those moments, one can see where things are not functioning, and they can purge those things. And that is a way a Scorpio story works, is when they get there and they're all in and they see what is not working, and they have that ultimate standing and confrontation of oneself and that incredible insight that happens. There's no going back. The only way is forward. And in those moments, there's the ultimate letting go of what has been the thorn in one side in these parts of your chart. And only then can true power be revealed and be reclaimed by a Scorpio or a Taurus or anything at these degrees when they walk through and finish the regeneration process. They have to go, there's like a complete ultimate surrender into oneness and divineness. And it just is tough. It's hard. Bring it on, I say, is what I'm saying. Bring it on. And in the end, with a full moon like this, being ruled by Mars in Cancer, there's an emotional element to this because Scorpio and Cancer are water signs. So this isn't no joke. This isn't some cerebral conversation. Mercury in Taurus brings the cerebralness into all this, but it isn't in an air sign. It's in Taurus, a Venus ruled sign. As I've said on my past videos, this is a Venus-Mars story, and that's where we can look. Right now, Venus is in Gemini, and it had some prepping this week that I mentioned with the square with Neptune and its connection to Jupiter. It's going to leave and go into Cancer on Sunday, May 7th. Now, one more thing on this eclipse. It's interesting because it happens at 10:34 a.m. And then like that day, though, too, as we start, the moon in Taurus or in Scorpio is opposing and opposite that Mercury retrograde. And then later in the day, the moon in Scorpio after the eclipse is then completely mathematically opposite Uranus and Taurus. And then later that night at 10:50 p.m., the moon finishes a wild eclipse day harmoniously trining that Mars in Cancer and water signs. So you have a little bit of a map, that 24 hours to deal with this eclipse. And you could use the moon in Scorpio and go through the stages. They're difficult stages. But remember, by the time we get into the later in the night in Pacific time at 10:50, which goes into the next day on May 6th, other parts of the world, the moon makes that harmonious connection with Mars and Cancer. And we are in emotional not paradise, but an emotional temple of healing and honesty and processing. And it's only there, I think, an eclipse story can start to do its shifting in place after the initial chapters of the day, where it can actually go to a place of stability and safety that Cancer brings, protection that Cancer brings, and Scorpio has their own insight to this type of stuff. And here they get to a deep emotional centering, comforting, nurturing place after everything that's happened that day and after everything that's happened in the last year and a half of your Taurus and Scorpio parts of your chart. Don't mess around on this one. Use it to all your advantage. Everything that comes out emotionally that you've been checking and dealing with, for the people I've talked about, especially fixed signs here, this is a fundamental shift in the story and you're never going back. So accept it and roll with it. And in Scorpionic fashion, go all in. So we get to Saturday. The moon is going to trine Neptune. See, Scorpio moon is going to trine Neptune in Pisces. You got another connection to the eclipse on a water-based place that's going to help you out. Then the moon goes into Sag. And then on Sunday, May 7th, Venus leaves Gemini and goes into the sign of Cancer. And we get into a more watery place. And this is good. We've had a lot of Gemini energy with Mars being there for 7 months. Venus went through. Now Cancer is there. Venus is going into there. This is good too for an aspect of anything in Taurus because it's an earth sign. It's going to connect with more water. We want this. We need this. Springtime in the northern hemisphere. Let's water the organics, water the flower that is you, and to connect on an organic, sensual, and sensory level that really touches into your emotional self and emotional body. And here, I think, is where healing can go into a next step. I'm trying to be positive in this video. Is this week intense? Yes, it's one of the most intense weeks of spring. I see a lot of action happening. My next video, when I talk about the rest of the month, we'll get into the other happenings. I will end the video by saying this. I just decided before I made this video that during the Cazimi moment of Mercury on May 1st, when Mercury Sun are together at 4:27 a.m., I'm going to do an impromptu live stream here on YouTube. I'm going to just do it out of the blue. If you catch me, it's good. I'm going to talk about this week, and I'm going to talk about the other major dates of May. And I can get some of those things out of the way because some of you have been asking for that. I've had a lot of work on my table. I'm very fortunate and lucky from the one-on-one client sessions that have been happening. Thank you for those of you, many of you that have found me through other channels. Thanks for subscribing. If you've never seen what I've done on a live stream before, you can look back to last week. I did a huge live stream talking about the eclipses, and I took live call-ins and did people's charts live on air. But on Monday, May 1st, around 4:27 p.m., I'm going to go live and just talk about the rest of the month and do it on the fly, which Mercury ruled. I decided, let's just do this. Let's do a live stream right when Mercury goes into the heart of the sun, and let's see what the hell is channeled through this winged messenger that you are looking at, and let's see what happens. There's risk involved, it's live, and that's how I flow. So if you've never seen me before, I'm Sparkles of Gold. Please hit the subscribe button, make a comment, say whatever you like, questions, so on and so forth. I'll try to answer them in a chat. And hopefully I see some of you on Monday. And have a good full moon eclipse week, my friends. I'll see you on the next video.